Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call meeting to order. Thursday, October 3rd, 10 a.m. begin the morning session. I'd like to give Mr. Kirkman to say the pledge and the secretary to say the prayer. Please stand. State your flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me to pray the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
All right. Rule number 3, Mr. Studer Trophy Player, update on food line protection project.
Can I just come to this mic? Mr. President, members of the board, thank you for the invite and the interest about the ME18 Rockefeller Refuge project. So to give you a little bit of background on the project, which is funded through QIPRA, federal program and state match program. This project was submitted roughly about 18 years ago. So it's been through a lot of struggles to get implemented. And there was about $33 million that was actually allocated for this project. 29 million went towards construction funds. Bids came out. It was expected to be about 10 million a mile. The property that the location of this breakwater design is placed, the geotech showed that the substrate could only hold about 200 pounds per square foot. So there was about 72 different models that was looked at to be considered for, a test run to prove that we've got to do something. We've got to figure out what works. And actually that point that just showed on the screen was one of the test sections that was successful, and that's what this whole design is modeled off of. It was placed in 2011, which is a light aggregate center core because of the low bearing capacity of the substrates. We had to produce a material to cut 50% of the weight out, but still have a structure that was strong enough to withstand the sea waters of the Gulf, the rough waters. So far, we've got about 3 miles that has been constructed. We're still needing some elevation checks and so forth. The flood waters that have occurred through Louisiana and all the way up north from last year to Kentucky has delayed the project to receive rock. They're telling me that the tugboats at one time had to come down the Mississippi River backwards. The port where they load the rock has been 25 feet underwater. So this has delayed the project, which the construction time was 600 days, which you would think that would be plenty of time, but you got to understand you're working with Mother Nature in the Gulf, and so we wanted to allow plenty of days in this contract in hopes we could get a better price. Again, I was mentioning the estimates were about 10 million a mile when the bids came in. Ran about $1,200 a foot, which puts us at about right at $19 million. So, whoa, man, everybody was excited. This is good news. We're below estimates. So there was some money that was still left over that was allocated for this project. So then we sat at the table and negotiated to use that money as a change order to extend the project, which is good news because the state and all the federal agencies supported it. The change order, we're hoping to be in construction, which should extend it about another mile sometime in December if things get on track. But what does this do for the parish? You know, as we look at Rockefeller Refuge as being a state operated refuge, it's self-funded. There's no tax money, there's no license sales, everything is generated from oil and gas off the property. But we use that money to find techniques in hopes to maintain these coastal wetlands and offer knowledge to landowners to also help improve their property. But what we see with this project is large scale. Cameron Parish, being able to, being fortunate to grow up here and experiencing what this parish has to offer. We've also know we have issues to maintain what we do have, and so all I can say right now is on these coastal restoration projects, we see a lot go on with marsh creation, and it seems there's a lot of money focused on those type of projects. But unless we do something with this shoreline, it's not going to pay here in the long run to pump mud where it's going to be in the Gulf of Mexico. So we've made those cases time and time again. It seems to be carrying some weight now. Now we see that the parish is potentially looking at Rutherford Beach and Little Florida Beach and maybe one other place, but potentially doing these shoreline projects. Well, in 3 months after installing these rocks, it was incredible the amount of buildup behind the structure. And even within the rock, you could see sediment getting trapped right behind the rock. But another thing I found very interesting was if you look at the areas that did not have rock prior to installation of this project, the elevation of what was left of what we call the beach in this area was only about a 1.5 to 2.0. Very low. I mean, basically it was marsh, just a little higher, which allowed typical high tide to flow in and move this shell hash. There's very little sand out here. It's a little bit different than Rutherford Beach and other beaches. It's mostly just shell fragments. And so this stuff floats and it moves and it kills the vegetation. The next weather system comes in and it moves again. To a point where we have noticed, we have surveyed and identified over 300 feet of land loss in 1 year. Over 300 feet. Some of that's even increased in some places. Some it has reduced. So we're looking at Rockefeller Refuge being 100 years old this year in December. And so when the property was turned over, we had 86,000 acres. 86,000 acres. We're below 69,000 right now. The mouth of Joseph Harbor once had 2 outlets, and on those 2 outlets, you had an island, which was so-called the game warden camp. Okay? 1990, I remember that camp. We have a GPS location of that camp. It's at 4,000 feet offshore now. 4,000 feet, y'all. And so, what we're going to experience in different places along the coastline here in the parish, you're going to have different rates of land loss. But here's what needs to be thought of. If we don't focus on protecting this coastline, you're going to get to a point where that rate is going to increase. It's going to enter into open water bodies. It's going to enter into areas that have been impacted with saltwater intrusion, and the habitat's struggling to survive. And once the Gulf gets in here, it's going to be devastating. We're going to lose a tremendous amount of land. So right now, this is the best thing since sliced bread, I guess you could say. But it's sure showing good benefits. The project has potential for other benefits. Monday, we did a contract with LSU. We're implementing a fish research study, which is going to track sport fish from redfish, flounder, and speckled trout. Since we have lost so many offshore platforms, which used to be a high recreational use of speckled trout fishing, it seems, has affected the population potentially of speckled trout, plus with all the rainfall, I think has another factor into it. But we're going to see how these structures can also be beneficial for fisheries use, and could also be, it could assist with permitting processes and so forth if we can get this information published. So with that said, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, I'm Johnny Pruitt. I live on Rutherford Beach, and we're very excited about getting our breakers out there. But I'd like to, I know we're going to be accumulating sand, more beach. What is your advice for us to help protect what we're going to be getting? We're going to be getting new sand, and is there any ways that what can we do to make the most out of this $10 million that we're about to receive? We're going to be accumulating things. Is there any kind of conservation advice that we might could follow that would help us to accumulate more and keep what we have?
Sure. Yeah, so you have these different projects and different groups that maybe it can be tapped into for vegetative plantings and so forth. I don't want to say restrict the sites or so directly behind the breakwaters, but it may be necessary at some point.
May be necessary at some point to restrict.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, that could be a possibility if it looks like other factors are coming in. But I would monitor the progress of the site, and also I would focus on trying to extend the project, and which you'll get the true benefits by protecting more of the beach and more buildup, and that area would become way more stable.
Well, now we do have we have grass plantings just yearly, and we're trying to accumulate something to hold what we do have.
No, and that's a great effort. The only thing is, I mentioned Mother Nature. You can do all this work, and overnight it can be gone,
Sure.
and then the process starts over again.
Sure.
And so you can only do what's best at the time, and try to do those projects to help save what is established. And it may not be as bad if something like that is established and you have a weather event, but it's hard to tell unless you have two comparable sites.
Well, I live there, and this is, I have nothing else to do but that. That's what I do. Just to try to do everything I can to try to preserve the beach as much as possible. And so it's for me, it's, even though I see what you're talking about, that it does ebb and flow.
Right.
It changes, it's changing right now today. We've lost probably, in the last, I'll say 6 months, we've lost probably another 20 or 30 feet as far as where the high tide is now coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're actually, right now, we don't really have, above the high tide is probably only about, we have just enough room to drive above the high tide line. So things are serious, but I'm really, but I'm proud of what the parish is doing as far as the grass plantings and different things like that. It's amazing what can take place. You can look now and see where the grass has been planted. It's now built up maybe up to 2 feet, just from the accumulation of the windblown sand, and just something there to be there to catch and to hold and to stabilize. It does work, and so I'm really excited about it. So.
Great, yeah. And another good thing that brings to mind what people can do when these agencies have these local meetings, it's great to see the room full and have interest and speak about projects like this that's going on in the parish. We have one project that's on the books that can make a huge difference on the big picture, and that's a hydrologic restoration project where we're looking at modifying some of Highway 82 and And the project's doing pretty good. We should know something come this December. I think this is the 5th year that we've been working on this project, so it seems to have a lot of interest. But at times, at some point, they'll be advertising stuff like this. And so if we can reduce the inundation period and bring the systems back to normal instead of prolonging these processes, it's going to be better for everyone. So any support for projects as a community and as a whole, the voice and support, it helps out tremendously.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve.
Joe and Mr. Dupont, I mean, I think we, the work Scooter and has done on this, this has been years, we've been talking about shoreline protection. When Ryan was here and all his efforts to do this, and y'all's efforts to put the money into it. And now you're building a good little team here with Rika and Kara and Katie, so, I just want to tell them I appreciate their efforts and acknowledge that. It's going on. Gonna continue.
Yeah, good deal. All right.
I have a question. On the pictures you're showing here, there's a difference where the breakers are out in front, and then you can see the white sand, and then that other colored stuff, colored sand or mud, or I'm not sure what it is, but it goes out the width of the whole sand. Is that from those breakers being there and the beach is building back up? Is that what that is?
No, actually, that's from previous weather events that came in prior to the rock. So the shell hash was actually in front of that. And then the weather event came, moved the shell hash, and all you're left with is that exposed organic matter. And that's where the erosion comes in, because there's no more root mass. Everything's dead because it's been smothered by the shell hash. The shell hash is the cancer that's causing this problem. So we figured out if we can put the breakwater protection, it takes the wave energy out, which then reduces the movement of that shell hash and keeps it in place. The new elevations we see behind some of this stuff is up to a 5.5.
Right.
So it's like rebuilding the beach rim that, a chenier that was once there before.
So planting grass and bushes and trees will be helpful then.
It will, unless you have a big event comes and overtops everything. It's just, yeah,
But you have to do what
you just never know what's gonna occur.
Well, that's good, so there's some hope there, because my
Yes.
place is on Rutherford Beach in the front too, and it's disappearing so fast that it's scary, actually. So it's
Yes.
good to see this, and I commend you for your project and
Thank
the
you.
work you're doing.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. Number 4, Claire Martho, Bill Mason, revenue sharing, relate.
Thanks, gentlemen, for letting me speak to you today. I certainly appreciate it. What I want to talk about, and I'll be as brief as possible, are bills that have been filed to increase the amount of revenue sharing that the Gulf of Mexico Energy Security Act states, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, receive. If you recall, because of your leadership, Ryan and the team were able to bond GOMESA dollars, which was the first time that had been done in our nation's history, as far as I'm aware. It got national media coverage. The Gulf of Mexico Energy Securities Act dollars, that funding was signed into legislation by President George W. Bush back in 2006. There have been a lot of efforts to support GOMESA revenue sharing for the Gulf of Mexico states, and I was asked by Chip Klein with CPRA and the governor to help to build a coalition in the 4 GOMESA states that would support increasing the revenue percentage that the states, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, receive. In case there are folks who don't know, right now, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama share a 37.5% portion of those revenues that are created in the Gulf of Mexico. While inland drilling states, which, by the way, are Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming, they share in a 50% portion of the revenue. So there are bills that have been filed by Cassidy, Murkowski, Kennedy, and others that, in the Senate, that would increase the share of GOMESA revenue that comes to the GOMESA states from that 37.5% up to 50%. And they'd also remove the $375 million cap that is allowed to be shared. And the Cassidy-Kennedy bill establishes revenue sharing for Alaska as well. On the House side, Cedric Richmond and Garrett Graves, and these bills, by the way, are certainly already have bipartisan support, does the same thing, increases that revenue share of GOMESA dollars back to the GOMESA states from that 37.5% to 50%, and removes that $375 million cap. Scalise also has a bill that he's put forth. So we see, again, some bipartisanship support for this effort. So it was great to follow Scooter. Although no GOMESA bonded dollars were used on ME18, remember that Rutherford Beach, Long Beach, Little Florida, those shoreline protection projects are being funded by those GOMESA dollars that you all bonded. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, fiscal year 18, and thanks, Katie, so much for all of your help getting all this together. Fiscal year 18 actual, Cameron Parish received $1,090,581 in GOMESA revenue. Fiscal year 19, $1,294,394. And remember, GOMESA revenues in the state of Louisiana go to benefit coastal restoration and protection projects. There's a 10% included in there for infrastructure projects, things like LA1 on the eastern side of the state. We estimate that if this coalition is successful and these bills keep moving forward and change the law from that 37.5% to 50%, Louisiana may see as much as 4 times what we're currently seeing in GOMESA revenue. In addition to that, the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority's only continuing stream of revenue are GOMESA dollars. So CPRA relies heavily to fulfill the projects in the master plan on GOMESA dollars. There have been several trips to DC by CPRA and others who wanted to get involved in this coalition to help everyone in DC understand how vital GOMESA dollars are for the state of Louisiana. We're working really hard to make sure that our friends in Texas and Mississippi and Alabama understand how much we rely on these dollars. So what I would like to ask as a member of this coalition and representing the Cameron Parish Board is that you guys consider signing a resolution of support for the GOMESA Revenue Sharing Coalition. This information is going to be going to all parish administrators, parish presidents, police jury presidents, elected officials to ask for their support as well. We have template letters of support, resolutions for any entity. So we're hoping to send a real clear message to DC that we absolutely need this increase from the 37.5% to the 50%, and we need that $375 million cap removed. So that's what I humbly ask you to consider. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them.
I think in that letter.
Sounds like something we need to do, Mr. DuPont, tell you the truth, and
Get it out there real quick.
we would, Claire, you got the templates?
I do.
Prepared, y'all got it?
Yes, Mary's already prepared it.
We can add this to the agenda, it's not on the agenda right now.
Yeah, that's good.
As far as I know, Cameron,
Everybody good with that?
as far as I know, Cameron Parish will be the first police jury to send in their letter.
Good deal.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. All right, move on to number 5, Mr. David Doxey, frown upon signs on private property.
Yes, and I'll talk to a couple of my cohorts up here. When you're working, you are not allowed to, you're not supposed to be political, talking about politics and stuff. But when your time off and it's your land, and say, I come talk to you, I want to run for you. The way it's been in the past is we frowned upon that. Well, I'm here to say that we don't frown upon that. I want you, everybody know it's your land, it's your right, and it's unethical for us to say you can't do it. I want to make sure that is put in the minutes, and Miss Emily will tell her employees. Because I was told by several employees when they got hired, you can't put a sign in your yard, which is, I had to go, my first time I ran last year, I had to go pick up 6 or 7 signs, because there people work from, everybody works from the parish here. That's the problem. In this district, everybody works from the parish. So that's what I was talking about on number 5. And I just want to know if everybody agrees with it on that, on the board. Or does anybody disagree?
Are there any ethical issues that from the state that would prohibit?
Well, that you're showing power over, you know,
I'm just asking you.
oh, she's right there.
Yes, the parish ordinances and personnel policy do not have anything like that regarding political activities. The only thing I was able to find was a statute, it refers to abuse of office, and it's very vague. It says that you're not to abuse your office as a public servant to influence political activities. It doesn't really define what the political activity is. It basically just says, I'll read it straight from the website, servant to engage in political activities. Political activity means an effort to support or oppose the election of a candidate for political office in an election. So, and I don't think we have our legal counsel here today. She notifies that she wasn't going to be here, but to me that just means that it's up to you to decide what's appropriate or not, and you assume the responsibility. If you are political in your private in your private life, and someone wants to file suit against you and says that you're using your public servant, your office, to influence or persuade an election, then they could file an ethical suit against you, and then that would be up to the determination of the court if you violated any ethics. But
And that would be upon the individual, not upon the church.
yes, right, correct. So I will follow up with Miss Jennifer Jones, though, to make sure that that's exactly how she interprets it. But as for the parish, we have nothing in our ordinance or in our personnel policy that provides for instructing employees not to be engaging in political activities on their own time.
Well, that's clear for everybody. I mean, you can't tell somebody at work, because I talked to several people when they got hired on, they said, you cannot put a sign in your yard. And it's private land. Mr. Me and Mr. Falk talked about that too. It's private land, whatever. Whenever I put a sign up, I get permission from the owner of the land. And I can put my sign there. Now, but if he works for the parish, I can't do that. As of now, because of that.
Well, maybe he just told you that so.
No, I've talked to
Sign.
No, you know how this parish is run back there.
Anyway,
I just want to get that clear,
all right.
that your employees can't sign.
Yes, and we will
But I think
definitely,
not
Without retribution from the one who lost or won.
correct.
All right,
Thank you very much.
all right, let's move on to the next, Mr. Dino Hicks, vote for taxpayer.
Yeah.
That reach the already cut, or maintain our easements. It's not personal drive, but it's for one of those suits. Stick there cut, and the vibration, we can put it in the strain or something, put it in a walk off, get you stuck.
And you talked to Emily, you discussed with Emily? Okay.
What are we looking at? What are we looking for? 1 6-foot reach. We'll maintain our easement, cut it up. What do we have now?
16 and 17 foot.
17 foot?
And we cut everything we need now?
There's a couple spots that's not quite, but we have to be, that we're not gonna ever cut, but we have to be careful that we don't end up intrusion on private property.
Okay. What's the cost difference
Um,
from what we've been running now to going up and cost of moving and?
I'm still waiting on one of the prices on the tractor because they're trying to get me a state contract price, but we're looking at about 150 or 160 for both.
Tractor and slope more,
For the
big up.
26-foot reach?
Sorry?
For a 26-foot reach?
Yes, well, that was actually a 24.
24?
We got roads that we need to cut with a 24.
State road,
How many?
the state road, and Hackberry
State
would
road.
cut the state road for the state.
Road.
Now, I think we're reaching everything that's on the Parish road.
How much is the 16-foot? And that's what we run now?
We're running a 16-foot now.
And what's the cost of that?
I apologize, I didn't get a price for the 16-foot being I had that size.
I don't think we need to be buying slow boards right now. We fixing to start talking about budgets
Yes.
and equipment and all of that coming up in our
Yes, in November, we'll have a budget meeting and we can get the
it's good to
answers.
talk about it, but I mean,
Well, I think that's what he wants to do, he wants to talk about putting it in the budget, talk about it in the budget, I'm not buying it right now, you're talking about, yeah, putting it in the budget, looking at where we're at here next month in the budget with
Yes.
it.
And I can-
really,
Possibly get a price on the 16-foot new one, see what that costs versus the 24, see where we at.
Okay. Well, I have that.
does that need to be voted on to add it to the budget?
No, we're simply just gonna get the price and look at it, and we'll discuss it next month when we start having a budget meeting. We're buying our equipment for the following year, all right?
Yes, sir.
That good, you know, when we put in that budget, so we can talk about it and see what we need.
Yeah, I'm sure she's gonna have other groups too.
Yeah.
That's
I
right.
mean, there's a whole process.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Good, everybody good? All right, before we go into case number 7, I got a card here from Dr. Duffy of the Cameron Parish dog tag ordinance. You want to come up and talk?
Good morning, folks. I'm Dr. D. Rutherford Beach. Thank you, Mr. President. This is actually a result of a conversation I had with Katie Hunter last month. We in the parish have a dog tag ordinance on the book. If we go to the ordinance, it's chapter 4, article 2, where they talk about dogs, and it's 17 through 22 sections. Any dog owner in the parish, whether you're a resident or not, needs to report to the parish health officer with your dog's vaccination or inoculation, as they refer to, which is the vaccine, rabies vaccine. At that time, the parish health officer will register the dog in the parish and issue a tag license good for 1 year. The fee is not mentioned, there's a fee associated with it. It's a misdemeanor if it's not completed, with both financial, civil, and up to jail time involved with it too. So trying to make my two illegals legal, I called down to the parish health department, and no one in the department knew what we were talking about. Note though, it's a state health department, it's really not the parish health department. And ended up speaking to Mr. Ryan King, who, to paraphrase the best we can in public, he hasn't done it in 16 years and doesn't plan on doing it. So we have an ordinance on the book that actually we're not enforcing, and do we even need? We are, those of us that own dogs right now, it's unlawful for us without a tag. And I don't think we have any opportunity to get a tag on since we don't have a parish health officer per se. Just want to jump to last month too, if I just may, as an addendum. We talked about the finances, I believe, on who's going to be responsible for the dog pound and maintaining these dogs. The impression was, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the police jury responsible for that? It's the sheriff's department, both for nuisance dogs and also for stray dogs, correct?
Correct. The law is that if you have a population of less than, I don't remember exactly what Ms. Jennifer said, but it's, you remember what it was? Less than 50,000, it's the sheriff department's responsibility. Now, the police jury has always tried to help the sheriff with financially support the animal control, but they were not obligated to. They just did it because they voted as a jury.
Thank you, thank you.
And I believe, we were gonna talk about the dog ordinance today, but because we couldn't have Ms. Jones here, we're gonna wait till next month to talk about amending the ordinance, and that's one of the highlighted items to fix.
Okay.
Ted, you talking about the wood part of that tag law?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because we need to, I mean, if we're not using that ordinance,
Yeah. Well,
probably take it off the book, I don't know.
well, since Jennifer ain't here, we just assume that.
Yeah.
Let's wait till next meeting, we can get the whole
I just
discussion
wanted to
about
make
that.
sure that that's what you was
Yes, that's one of the highlighted. Well, she asked if we needed anyone to represent the office. She did email both Mary and I and ask, but we told her that we didn't really have anything that we thought that, they needed to really talk about considering with the dog ordinance.
Okay, all
So
right,
they'll be here next month.
that's good. Go to number 7, Katie Wongtal, budget review.
Okay, so the first thing in your packet, page 1, is actually just our monthly finance report from January through August 31st, 2019. Our revenues for the general fund are roughly $4 million, and our expenditures are $3 million. That leaves us with a surplus of $13 million right now in the bank. You can see the road and bridge department, they are operating at a deficit, so we're gonna have to transfer some money into their account, so that's typical of the jury. Courthouse and jail, they had $652,000 revenue, roughly $880,000 expenditures. They're sitting with $1.6 million, which is very well considering how much funds that we had to put back into the courthouse to make sure that everything, all the renovations turned out the way they did. And I think everyone was thrilled with our courthouse dedication program. So thank you guys for making that possible. Health unit revenue, $7,000. You don't levy a tax in the health unit. That's one of the villages that you roll back 3 out of the 4 years to kind of give your voters a tax break. They have a $300,000 millage, and they only usually spend $150,000. So after they bank a surplus over a few years, then we roll those millages back. So they're sitting on $900,000. Once they spend some of that surplus down, then we'll levy the tax again. Parish-wide garbage and waste management revenue is $1.9 million. Your expenditures so far are $1.1 million. Just for this operating year, I think there's a 1 missing there. I'm sorry. And then there's a criminal court. It's one of those that always operated a deficit. Right now, you're at $145,000 in revenue and $464,000 expenditures. At the end of the year, you'll collect a little bit more on that revenue. So before we move on to just a brief summary of the budget, do you have any questions about the monthly finance report?
Okay, quick.
Still on the very point, Lawrence, that was
Yeah, the total's
Okay.
missing.
Huh?
What'd you say, sir? I'm sorry.
surplus.
Yeah, that's great. That was just for this year and not for total surplus. So, and we won't get into the budget too deeply in this meeting. I think we're gonna save that for our November budget meeting. I do have a summary for you that we can kind of review. And then the last pages 3 through 24 are more of the detailed line items. Just for you to make sure before we go through it, our tax rolls haven't officially been adopted yet, so everything is unofficial right now. You have a board review meeting today to officially adopt it. So once you adopt your tax rolls, Michelle, the assessor's office, will send me the final adopted tax rolls, and then your revenues will be a better projection. So right now, this is all just preliminary numbers, which is why I didn't want to get too far into the revenue and the expenditure side. But just for a glance, the ones that you're really probably concerned about would be the general fund. They're projecting $4.5 million worth of revenue. We're expecting right now over $1 million worth of alcohol tax, about $1.2 million. It could fluctuate, but right now with Chenier coming off some of the exemptions, that's what they're projecting. And then our expenditures, we're projecting a $4.3 million. So, like I said, this is very preliminary, and this does not include any capital assets or capital project funds, which is your 2 million. But right now, the first draft, we're looking at maybe balancing our budget. And if we don't do the $2 million, capital project money. Road and Bridge, their Avalon tax is gonna help them substantially. They're gonna still operate at a deficit, but we are closing that deficit every year. Emily's been doing a very good job of keeping costs down. When people are retiring, they're not replacing them. They're trying their best to consolidate a few of the road duties amongst the barn. So she's doing a really good job with getting us close to operating and balancing that budget. Courthouse and jail, it's the same thing. So far, we don't have any problems. We won't really know about that budget until the courthouse comes back online full. We only have a month worth of expenditures to really base these budgets off of right now because they just moved in. So the electricity and the gas bill and everything, water bill, we'll have to see what's gonna happen with that. I know our insurance is gonna go up. I think we had to, it almost doubled once we accepted the building, but that's something that hopefully by November and December, we'll have a better handle on what to project. So I can go through the rest of them, or if y'all wanna have any questions, I will tell you that we'll have our first real budget meeting in November. That'll be the opportunity, the time for people to come ask for any funding allocations from the jury. We'll talk about doing reorganization, any cost of living raises, any steps, any employee evaluations, everything will be done at that meeting. If any department wants to come and ask for reclassification, that'll all be done in the November meeting.
Are you gonna send them the email and let everybody know that?
Yes.
So that way we ain't gotta, they can.
Yes.
Make sure everybody's on the same.
Everyone's coming to that
That way
meeting.
we all get in one meeting.
We ain't doing this,
Right.
local
Yeah.
meetings with
No.
different ones.
That will be handled at the November meeting. We will have our public hearing at the end of November. That will be publicized in the Cameron Pilot 10-day notice. So everyone, the public and employees should have enough time to come to the public hearing and make any statements or comments regarding the budget. And then the December meeting, you will adopt your 2020 budget.
All right, good deal.
Okay, I do have a question here.
Yes, sir.
And I see Miss Susan's back there, maybe she can answer it, but what is the rent equipment at your office? What are you renting? Or what is the?
It's her computer systems. You want to explain?
My computer system, yeah.
Oh, you rent all your
We-
computers?
Well, we classify it as rent, but it's their operation system. It's something that we've done since Carl was in. I think the jury at that time allocated it for Carl.
Okay. The only other question I got is, $28,000 in streetlights. Are we making sure they shine?
I think Emily, I can let Emily speak about the street light.
We normally do at least once a month, the foremen go out and check the different streetlights for Hackberry and Big Lake. Just Sweet Lake, I think we actually only have like 2 or 3 on this side. But yes, we do check them.
So make sure they shine.
Yeah, they do that. And actually, I was gonna, at the budget meeting, bring up the streetlights because I left Cameron late at night this week, and it's very dark down Main Street at Cameron these days. There's not a lot of lights. There's no street lights, I think, because there were so many businesses. It used to be well lit, but now it's not very well lit. It's hard to see, and it was really hard to see the water on the road right in front of our office. So we might want to check into adding a few street lights just for safety reasons. Because I'm telling you, when the water's on the road, you can't see it. It's really dark.
What kind of car you drive? You got headlights?
I drive a Nissan Altima, okay, and it's a 2012 model, so maybe my headlights are not as bright as they should be, but.
I need to remind us on, there's a budget meeting next month to bring up.
Yeah, so I just,
So just,
give us time to think about that, because, and they're not very inexpensive, the streetlights, they really are, they're like $20 a month. I say that's not as expensive, but I mean, I think it's something we should consider placing just a few around our main entry for safety reasons.
Any more questions? Okay.
Seriously?
All right, let's review our agenda. Yes, sir.
Yes, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank a lot of people. We had two things going on last Tuesday. We had the dedication of the courthouse, of the renovation, and it took a long time to get done. I personally want to thank everybody that had something to do with it. It was a great feeling to stand up on the front side of them steps looking down. We had a good crowd. Most of the jury was there. Thank y'all very much for the hospitality of the food and all who work behind the scenes, in the scenes, during the scenes, whatever. Thank you very, very, very much. It was very nice. It was a super event, and I think it went off very, very well. The second thing is that there's so many people think about Region 7 meeting. We had a great meeting that night. The staff, y'all did an outstanding job, even though we had to give the award to Vermillion because of our state representative. That's all right. Anyhow, we're gonna go get it back. But listen, thank y'all very much. I know there was probably 2 or 3 people that really worked on weekends. They worked their tail off to do some pretty stuff, nice structures, nice stuff inside the building. It was a very awesome, great event. I spoke to Guy Cormier the other day by phone, and he said, thank y'all very, very much. He said, Vermillion's got your work cut out for us. So anyhow, whoever y'all are, you know who you are. Just thank you very, very, very much. It was a very awesome experience, and it was a great deal. The food was awesome. Can't get no better than that. Thank y'all.
All right. Let's review our agenda.
Way past all the board review.
Yeah, 1 o'clock is the board review meeting, guys, that do that
Yeah,
tax
1 o'clock.
protest. But then, you know, so the assessor will be here for that. And then this afternoon at 2 o'clock is the voting meeting. It's not a long agenda, so just,
One I got, Emily, is, how much equipment do we have equipment
We have a surplus of signs that was from the project after Hurricane Rita. We have probably 1,100 signs that are going. We have 2 lawnmowers right now that are going.
So it's not a whole lot of stuff.
No, sir, it's just, no, sir.
there's no vehicle.
There's no vehicle or nothing like that. It's just kind of trying to clean up the signs. The reason that we're gonna sell them for surplus, after so many years, you lose the reflectability on them. And they're in really bad shape. They were, brought to the old barn behind the school, and they were set out there. We didn't have a place to put them in the sun. And by the time we were able to get somewhere to put them after Rita and everything, it's just better to get rid of them, because if you put a curb sign up and something happens, it can come back on us.
I prefer this way anyway.
The speed limit changes in Hackberry
Yeah.
for both.
So
The speed limit change on there is in Hackberry. It's,
do we have a priority list on bridges?
Sorry?
A priority list of the bridges?
No, sir, this is the off-system bridge. We do this every year. We've been in this system. It takes about 10 years or longer, and what happens is they bank the money every year, and they'll come in and they'll pick which, they'll usually give you 1 or 2 bridges to pick from, but it always goes back to the amount of money you have to which one can actually get replaced. We've already replaced one so far, and it was Trostler Bridge. We did not have to pay for anything for that permit. We're in the middle of the Lochner Bridge, and we've been banking the money. We will have to buy some right-of-ways when it comes time, because they changed the rules on the guardrails. And it's for the guardrail itself. We picked that one in 2014. It just takes that long to be able to do all the steps and the permitting and stuff. But that is the next one that's actually on the list. And then, unfortunately, it's another 10 years or so before another one actually gets picked. But the resolution, we do this every year.
They pretty much come and inspect, and we stay in the program, and they actually evaluate it.
Yes, sir.
And you get enough.
And that's the list I'm asking about. Do we have a list?
No.
Where they all ranked as far as wear and tear?
The only thing that you're gonna have a list, or the only thing we have a list of is letting us know that Lochner Bridge is on the list to be replaced. They don't give you a list.
So if they inspect it, they don't give you a list.
No, they give you inspections on every bridge, but it's not a list. It's not a priority list.
Okay.
They just tell you what's wrong with this one, and what's wrong with this one, or, I don't know if I'm explaining that right. But when they come through and they take all their pictures and everything of the bridge, it's just a file. We have to do the interim inspections in between. We normally hire somebody to come out and do that. That's where we can say, this bridge needs to be replaced next, this bridge needs to be replaced second. That is more or less our duty to hire somebody to do that, and we do that.
So do we have a list, I mean, of where, which one would be next, which one's in most dire need? If we do that, I'll get with the address, if we do, I'd like to see.
Okay, I'll send it to you. The list, normally, so far, what we've gotten, the bridge that you're probably talking about is not in the off-system bridge. That is a parish bridge. Is that kind of what we're talking about, the one
No,
that's?
I'm really not.
Because we have a bad one. You have a really bad one in your area, but it's not in the off-system. We will have to make a decision on what to do with that bridge.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Katie, item number 12, that termination of and release agreement for Cameron Speaks. What's going on with that?
That's part of our affordable rental program. The affordable houses that were built parish-wide, we've reached our maturity date. The effective date was August 2013, and so we've actually 6 years in on that, so it's time to go ahead and release everything. We've closed the affordable rental project. The CEA, the project has been accepted, so we are no longer required to monitor it, so we're gonna go ahead and release it and get that off our books, if that's okay with you guys.
All right, thank you.
I do. Ms. Beverly is here to give us the update on the house count. If y'all allow her to speak.
Yeah, that's good.
Hello. We requested a house count about a month ago, and worked with Emily and her team, and one of our waste management representatives and one of Cameron Parish representatives completed the house count. And we hadn't had a house count since 2012, so it was probably time to do one. The new numbers are, it was 3347, and the house count came out to 4,050. So there's an increase of 703 homes in Cameron Parish that are now have been being serviced. And I'm here today to see if anybody has any questions. Emily has a copy of the house count that, you know, for her records, and I have a copy of it. And if anybody has any questions about it, I wanted to see if I could help anyone.
What contract with that, we're still operating
On the SSW contract, which we got approved by y'all once we acquired SSW.
we're still operating on that contract?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And our representative was, to my understanding, our representative was Holly. And I understand she don't no longer, who's our representative? You're gonna be our representative?
Yes, sir.
I was just wondering because, when somebody in the community has a problem there, or we can pick up, I know they typically call us. But who are we gonna transfer that to?
Me.
To you?
Yes, sir.
You gonna
If
give
you-
us a local number?
Yes, sir, I have cards, I'll be sure everyone has one, I mean, I'm who you call if you have an issue.
Okay.
And I
Your cell
will,
phone we gonna be talking to?
yes, sir,
Okay.
I have it with me 24/7.
Got hand over there.
Nope, it's the same number that I've always had,
Well,
and,
that's what I just wanted to make sure we still got somebody local. where
Yes, sir.
we're not having
that's me, you just let me know, and I'll get with operations and take care of whatever needs to be taken care of.
Miss Beverly, I have a question. On that note, I know it's you with your cell number, stuff like that, but for the public, is there a certain number that they could call that we could maybe put on our website? If they're having an issue that they would be able to call?
Yeah, during office hours, there's our office number, and I'll give that to you to put on the website. It's a direct line into our office, it's our operations clerks. So, you know, or they can call, you know, we have a call center, which I'll give you that number also. So, but we, you know, we do have local people here that will take their calls and,
That we can publicize it.
address whatever issues they have.
Did, when we had trash mess up here a day or so ago, did we call anybody or we just took care of ourselves?
The first time it happened, they took care of it. The second time, we ended up taking care of it.
Did anybody call them the second time to let them know?
Did Shane?
Shane did, Shane called me and, we have a truck back in that area on Friday, so we were gonna recoup it Friday morning, but then he called me back yesterday afternoon and said that I would take care of it. So I guess our question, you know, the question there was, are they finished with that road, the blacktop road? And
Yes,
he's
ma'am.
gonna check into it for me to see if they're finished so that that doesn't happen again next week.
Yes, ma'am. We've moved on to another road.
Okay.
There is a couple roads.
Okay, so if you can let me know what those are, maybe we can rearrange a route so that that doesn't happen. I don't know how their hours they working on it or whatever, but we'll try to work with you for anything, any kind of road work.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any more questions? Okay.
We don't have a trash pickup in the district, and we're not asking for it, but we may be asking for some extended hours of trash. I don't know if we need to add that to the agenda to vote on. That will be done, but I mean, I don't want to surprise people with issues like that, because one of the things I want to go over with you is that we have a lot of people temporarily living in areas that are not in a trailer park who is to take care of their own trash, that may not get access to some of the trash dump because of their address or their driver's license. I'd like to figure out a way to make sure that those people who are staying in our parish, working in our parish, spending their money in our parish, get a chance to use the dump if they need to. So to be fair, you know, I want to be fair to everybody.
Yeah, we've been trying to figure something like that out around like here, the whole parish, where people's coming in.
Well, but, and we don't want to have that, but at the same time, we do have people in the parish where they do get trash. And that's some of that stuff that you see on the side of the road, that's all I think bad about.
You're right.
We need to wrestle that.
Yeah.
I would set up something something we need to figure that out. I know we had brought it up a while back, asking for some sort of identification or something.
Yeah.
We need to move forward with that, I think.
Well, Ms. Beverly, is there anywhere y'all go that they use some kind of identification at y'all's dump sites?
For the trash,
For at the trash collection sites for the people in the parish? Is there anything you know of that out there?
so somebody coming in asking for identification?
So
Yeah, in Calcasieu Parish, the two convenience centers, you have to show your identification that you're a resident.
well, that's
To
easy
utilize
for them, but for us, we have Lake Charles, Bell City, Cameron, Korea.
Yeah, you have lots of
Our main one is
areas.
Bell City and Lake Charles address is in Cameron.
Especially Johnson Valley right now, everybody down there don't have a camera parish address because they're working at the plant, but they live in our parish.
That's right.
And I thought we had discussed this in Johnson Body house. Fellow over owns a trailer park, gets a dumpster.
Yeah, and we're not talking about the trailer parks.
Trailer
We're
park.
talking about buildings that are outside the trailer park.
Okay, now, to park on what's called land, you gotta show, to drive your car on the pipe or LNG, you gotta show at least that you pay rent somewhere. So if they show that rent, same receipt that they pay in rent.
They have a tag on the windshield, they're going to the plant, so that's.
Well, they had to show something.
The only thing, I don't know what else we can show besides.
We can get a receipt, I mean, get a receipt from the fella that they rent.
I wanted to give y'all an update. Whenever we had visited before about the Sweet Lake problem that we were having, we actually did go to Calcasieu, and what they do is they have this little iPad type thing, but they do theirs differently. Whenever they scan their license and stuff, at the end of the year, they can actually say, well, this guy actually had this much trash, where they keep like a record. It was a little bit more too in-depth of what we needed, because we're not really worried about that part. And the other problem ran into, it was a cost figure, because the only thing we needed something for was to say, hey, you live in Cameron Parish, but you can only look at your driver's license. So we still didn't kind of come up with something. And me and Katie kind of got together and we talked about maybe doing like a card, and on the back of the card we could put like the address, and you put their driver's license number, but you have to flip it over possibly, because you may send your kid instead of you. So we could do kind of like a business type card that we could try to get together that we could kind of come up with. But as far as using the same equipment that they have with the iPad, it's really wasting money, because we don't weigh what they bring in. We don't have a scale. So it kind of is not going to work what they're having.
Do you have something, a suggestion that could happen fairly quickly? Because Cameron says they get over, same thing, there's a lot of trailer parks, there's gonna be a lot of people in the block, these things like that.
Yeah, we developed a sample policy, so we'll email that out to you guys to review before the next meeting. And but we do have something, a sample policy, a sample card. There will be costs associated with producing the cards. We could use our equipment, so we could keep costs pretty low. But when you read the sample policy, you understand like how you qualify for one. It's not just being a resident or just being a taxpayer, or just having an electric bill. There's several different options that we could probably customize. So if they provide a Chenier pay stub, then you know they're working here, then maybe, so that's something that we could try to work on and have at the next meeting, if that's what you would.
And they're gonna include independent vendors, like say a house here in Cameron.
Yes, the policy would stipulate how you would qualify for a card, and you could work any of those options in with the policy. That's something that you would have to vote on in a meeting. But I'll email you the policy. We have probably 5 different ways to qualify for a card. You don't have to just be a voting.
When y'all first come out with dumpsters, any commercial couldn't have it. I had to buy one for the church. Now I see that RVs all have the same garbage cans. You can give it to them or give mine. Are you counting RV spots too, or just homes?
The RV spots were counted, yeah.
Huh?
The RVs were counted that were here.
Okay. But I mean, the commercial, if I say it, no commercial was gonna get a trash can.
When we actually did the trash cans, we were not, I guess, looking ahead to that far to know what was gonna take place with the RVs. And in the beginning, when all the trash cans were put out, that's how they were done. When we purchased the trash cans, that's how they were done.
Yeah, we didn't expect any fluctuation of RVs like we got. I mean, we kind of went by just household residents when we decided to buy all these things.
Correct.
But the thing is, we had to pay for commercial. The church, for our church.
I apologize, I think you're the only church that bought one. In Creo, he lives there, he got a trash can, because he is a resident. So I apologize for his
resident there, yeah.
And that's a good point. We also have visitors that come for the weekend, come to the beach, do different things. We're all wrestling with that one too. That depends on the beach, they work, but then the locals start throwing their trash, everybody else starts throwing their trash, because it's open, it's not restricted.
In Holly Beach, anybody, they will not turn anybody around that goes to Holly Beach. That is the only dump site that we do that with. We don't advertise it anywhere, because we don't want somebody driving from Hackberry to come throw something away. But in Holly Beach, when they leave the beach, they have always been able to go to the dump. It used to, when they had the businesses there, this is how, this was even before Rita, the businesses would actually encourage them if they came in and kind of seen what was going on. They would actually tell them, hey, the dump's right down the road, just head north. And they would take their trash with them. It's just, you don't have that there to be able to, to go around and say, hey, we do take your trash when you leave.
Could you
So you're gonna work on something for next meeting and get something in place so we can.
Yes, we already have most of the details worked out, so it's just an email. I actually print some if you want to review it for lunchtime, and we can kind of brainstorm on different options, and we'll have that something, if you want to vote on it in November, we'll have it ready. I do want to, if you can clarify something, Ms. Beverly, are you just giving us an update, or are you requesting to amend the house count numbers in the contract?
Yes, I am requesting to amend it effective October 1, if that's agreeable with the jury.
And, okay, so when does the current contract expire? The options renews not till next year, correct?
Right, the end of 2020. And there's an option for 3 years, then 2 years after that. But I worked with Emily to avoid having to have such a drastic change in your house count again. When she gets requests for new move-ins or things like that, she will send me a copy of it, and we'll keep it updated on a monthly basis or based on the information that she sends me. So that, trying to avoid having to have another house count and a drastic change in your number. And we can just keep a rolling count on it. I know that there's going to be a lot of activity coming up.
I don't know if the contract has a provision that allows us to keep updating the house count without going through a formal meeting. I'm gonna have to get our legal to review that.
Okay, well, we certainly we don't want to do anything that's not in the contract, but we just thought it would be easier to do that.
Right.
And, 1 or 2 a month or whatever, and,
You go look at the contract with the legal team and see what we can do or what we don't have to do or whatever.
Yeah, if the contract can be amended, we can do it retroactively to that.
Right, but it'll have to be a formal amendment and a police jury.
I mean, there's a provision in there, but I'm not sure how it's
Yeah.
stated, so they need to review that.
I'll contact Max. Ms. Jenny told us to contact him
Okay.
this week if we had anything urgent, so I'll give him a call.
All right, so let us know something.
Yeah, I'll call him right after this meeting.
All right, good deal.
thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Any other questions? Anybody? Gerald?
No, as of now, we will only have an add-on for resolution support for the Gamesa proposed resolution by Claire.
Everybody good with that?
When's the next meeting?
Sorry?
When's the meeting in November?
It's November
1st.
November 1st.
All right, everybody good? All right, meeting adjourned.